Well, Karissa, my friend, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I know it's fun. It's been fun getting to know you, and then you and I are both working through our tech issues, and here we are. We made it. So you have been a practicing sex therapist since 2011.
Uh-huh.
You're about to write your dissertation for your PhD in sexology.
Yep.
Why the fascination with sex, and why did you decide to pursue more education in it?
Yeah. So for me, my faith is a really big deal. I originally wanted to be a tropical disease physician. Yep. And so
Very specific.
Yep. Because I wanted adventure. I grew up in the Midwest where it was always gray and snowy and bitter and cold. So I wanted.
You're talking to Canadian. I know exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but you have more internal sunshine than I do. So,
internal sunshine.
Yeah. I think you're a little brighter internally than I am.
Oh, I get you. Okay.
So I need more circumstantial sunshine.
Okay.
And women need more light for serotonin production and estrogen stuff. So,
okay.
Yeah. So let's see. Grew up in the Midwest. So I became a Christian when I was a teenager, and originally wanted to do marine biology. And then once I came to know the Lord, I felt like Jesus was like, "So we'll get all the fun stuff in heaven. On this side, maybe we should prioritize souls." I was like, okay. And then, so most of my family is involved in medicine in some capacity. So for me, it just made sense as far as like, well, then I'll just be a doctor. I love science. I love helping practically. You can have adventures with it. You can share the gospel and meet very immediate needs. Went over to Africa one summer in college and was bored to tears with the actual work. So I was like, that's not where I saw this going. And then just a lot of praying and seeking God's face and plan and purpose. And I came back and doors open to, I kind of heard doctor of the soul. And I was like, that's kind of grandiose, but maybe. And then when I went to, I got into my graduate program and went through the first day of orientation, our academic dean at the time said, "We're so glad you're here. Get ready. We're going to turn you into doctors of the soul." I was like, come on. So yeah, just following the Holy Spirit's leading, paying attention to where I'm anointed, where I find favor, what I'm passionate about, when I feel most alive, when I feel closest to the Lord. And then the sexuality piece, I just have a naturally pretty bold personality, and I like to talk about stuff that people aren't talking about. And I enjoy passion and the sensual, and the Lord has redeemed that and used that for good and to kind of pursue his design and intimacy. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
it definitely does. So talk to me about like the passion, the sensual piece, because I think these are now like, this doesn't feel like a faith-based conversation all of a sudden as soon as we use these words, right? Because I think people generally, you don't hear this kind of language in the church. But then I know, like you and I we've talked about just client experiences and client stories. And even when I was on your podcast, we were going back and forth a bit about that.
Yeah.
We know that Christians really struggle in this area. Like this is very, whether it's theological things that kind of set people up for failure, or it's past experiences, it's whatever, expectations, all that. Why are you interested in passion and sensuality, and why should Christians care about that?
Yeah. So before I met Jesus, so in my family, sex was celebrated, not in an inappropriate way, but my parents were always very demonstrative in a healthy, appropriate way of like, they had a healthy sex life. There weren't a lot of other healthy dynamics at that time, but sex was a way that they really celebrated connection. We used to have a pool, and they were very cuddly and affectionate. They'd hang out in the shallow end and just be lovey-dovey and sensual. And my dad would always want to grab my mom's booty because he appreciated that part of her. And he'd talk about how beautiful her legs were, and she'd talk about how great he smelled. And when they first met, there was this chemistry. So there was always permissive conversation to celebrate the physical and the sensual and chemistry.
Yeah, I was just curious, like what that looks like, and what, especially age appropriate and all that stuff. So that's really helpful. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and they'd make jokes, and my dad was a high testosterone male, and so he would make it like a big woodsman, and he worked in medicine, and he was just a very frank, blunt person. So he would just make jokes about stuff and make my mom blush, and they just had a cute, flirtatious thing. So that always was a healthy model for me growing up, because a lot of my clients I work with, or even in the church, it's like none of that's allowed.
So it sounds like because you had that upbringing, you didn't have to like reprogram to have maybe a more healthy view or openness to sensuality, pleasure. And all
if anything, after I came to Jesus, it was like, hey, let's dial it in. And let's dial it in. And And for now that you're a Christian, like there's this holiness thing and there's this purity thing and there's self-control and there's living in a different way than, just following your flesh around. Yeah, and I know, Sathia, with your audience, you talk about the roots of why men are using pornography and maybe misusing sexuality. For me, if I do a lot of reflecting back, part of my trauma is cold, dark, and alone. And so when I was with somebody, I wasn't alone. It didn't feel dark, and I was warm and connected. And so a lot of my work, as far as my own trauma work and then becoming a believer of the Lord, has done a lot of like soul searching and digging about would I be most prone to misuse the gift of sexuality outside of marriage, right? Like when would I be, like all of us have our baggage. And that's what I'm really passionate about teaching people is we're all humans. We all have human attachment needs. We're all sexual beings from birth, like on purpose. God did that. He gave us gender and hormones and genitalia and love and passion, and he did that on purpose. And from start to finish throughout scripture, God talks about sex from Genesis all the way through Revelation, right? Like he talks about it. He talks about a wedding at the first book and the last book. Like it's very important when God talks about his faithfulness of his people. It's always with sexual language and fidelity. So I think if the church could not be so fearful of the conversation, they'd actually see a ton of beauty and stewardship of a really powerful, great gift. But I think because it's so powerful and we're not taught how to steward the power well, we just kind of shun it and shut it down and try to keep it hidden because we're not sure how to manage big feelings and desires. And if things feel inappropriate, I must be bad or wrong. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I was at a hockey game. This is such a Canadian story. I was at a hockey game with a friend yesterday, and our team got clobbered. It was awful, but the conversation was great. And one of the things that we were talking about is because he's got boys that are, I think, 11 and 9, and we were talking a little bit about, how do you have those conversations? And my son is very young, but I've had the benefit of this podcast for 4 years of just asking people, how do you talk to your kids? And so. I was sharing with him some of the stuff I've been learning. He was really fascinated. And the one thing that that he said, kind of his one objection to talking about, because he's had his own journey with pornography and he's doing really well now. And he was asking, how do I share that with my kids? If I share it, does it give them permission to then go do those things? And it was kind of reminding me of what you're just saying, how often that fear is at play of, it feels like such a powerful subject, and we know that in theory there's a right way to go about it, but there's so many ways it can go wrong that we kind of just sweep it all under the rug. Like for him, it was like, I don't know if I want my kids to know that I struggled with it, and because I don't want them to have permission. And I was able to tell him, like, actually, your kids probably feel ashamed of themselves if they're struggling and they don't know that you've had that struggle. So you can give them a huge gift by letting them know. But secondly, like you telling them you fell short is not going to reduce their standard at all. So it was a good conversation to have, but I guess the question I want to ask you out of that is the fear thing. Like, what are we actually afraid of? Like, why do you think the church is not talking about sex? What is the church afraid of?
Oh my goodness, sir. Yeah. So this is like our basic human sexuality class 101. When we first started, we talked through how the church has handled its own sexuality. And how most of the church fathers have grossly mishandled their sexuality. I think,
and you're talking about like abuse and like sexual abuse and
like if you go back to the Vatican and the way that the Pope used to conduct orgies, obviously all the pedophilia, a lot of pastors and affairs. I mean, that's constant. It's kind of like all these people are alive and sexual beings, but now that I'm a Christian, I'm supposed to. So I always think about like Paul writing in all the epistles to the church. It's like he showed up to, every epistle he has to address sexual immorality, right? So the Church of Corinth, they're all sleeping with temple prostitutes. It was like normal. And then it's like, hey, now that you know Jesus, let's stop doing that. And I'm going to help craft your theology. Like you are actually a temple of the Most High God. And we're not supposed to unite the temple of the Most High God with prostitutes. So let's stop. Right. And so it was a very sexual culture. Ephesus, I mean, all throughout the New Testament, God has to, through his people, address sexual reshaping. Right. So in Romans, it talks about like Romans 1, as soon as we stop worshiping God, our very first thing to go is sexual self-control. like
Mm.
immediately. And so we talk in our human sexuality training in grad school about how powerful human sexuality is. And if you don't have the spirit, it can go off rails very quickly. And so the church, I think, because there hasn't been healthy teaching around that, like St. Augustine, our understanding of St. Augustine, who I love his writings and teachings, he was said to have scratched the sore of lust in Rome.
Hmm.
And so the idea was that he was probably a sex addict. And then after he came to Jesus, or after he became a Christian and started following Jesus, he kind of had this shut it down mentality of like, God winks on the marriage bed. So it was like, I think humans naturally do a hard pendulum swing out of like behavior modification, where it's like,
Yes.
hey, we're not supposed to do that thing. Well, I don't know how to hold the tension of like the power of desire and wanting. And maybe sexual self-control and discipline are new to me, and nobody's got, so let's just shut it all down. And then one of the fastest ways we can shut things down is to like shame it and make it bad. Just don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And
Yeah, it
so
does.
that doesn't work, because like you're talking about little kids. I mean, little kids start fondling their genitals as infants. And
Yeah.
that's not gross or bad. That's just exploration. Like their little bodies are responding to hormones and biology. And so that's not bad or evil. They're not fantasizing about something inappropriate. They're just going, hey, that feels good. What is this? You
Mm.
know, toddlers do that. Kiddos get into sexual exploration. And if parents aren't paying attention, I mean, kids are just chasing after what feels good.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And so I think the church just is afraid. All of it's just big and scary for lots of different reasons. I think the shame, our understanding of grace, like it's pretty limited. My work in sexuality has really taught me a lot more about the grace of God. That, you know, even if we make our bed in hell, even there He is, right? In Psalm 139, if I make my bed in Sheol, even God is there.
Mm.
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. 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 It makes a lot of sense. And I think this dynamic in the church that's existed for a very long time now has created a plethora of issues that would drive somebody or a couple to be in your office, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you and I were texting back and forth before the interview about pain issues, desire issues, some of those things that you wouldn't think could have anything to do with someone's theological foundation or church experiences,
Right.
but they're super real. And I'd love for you to talk maybe a little bit about the pain part of it first, just pain issues that people have. I want to hear men and women, because some of the stuff you were sharing about men was really fascinating. The female pain issues, I think, get discussed a little bit more. Obviously, it's not a well-discussed conversation, but if it
Sure.
is, that's
Yeah.
going to come up. So let's start there, and then I want to hear some of the pain issues that men might experience as well.
Okay. So, and just so for context, Cynthia, have you had anyone talk about pelvic floor on any of your podcasts?
No, that's the part that I'm really excited about.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So all human beings have something called a pelvic floor, and it's basically 3 layers of muscle in the body that actually runs anterior and posterior in the human body, and it holds up our reproductive organs, our excretory system, etc. So for men, the prostate, the bladder, the scrotum, testes, colon, all that kind of stuff. For ladies, it's, you know, the uterus, ovaries, and similar excretory system organs. It innervates into the back. So there's a whole pudendal nerve thing that runs into our lower back and our glutes. And then our jaw, there's a fascial sheath that connects it, fascia, like connective tissue, all the way down the front side of the body. So humans, our Western medicine model is not super great about this. I think people are doing a lot more studying on trying to bring it all together and be more holistic. But humans, everything's connected. If you think about the act of sex, in good sex, I would say, I'm just going to be bold here. In good sex, it's emotive and it's physical and it's demonstrative, right? Unless you're like very stuck and perfunctory, which some people are. They're pretty locked down for lots of reasons. But the pelvic floor is supposed to be emotional and expressive in the act of lovemaking, right? And so, like, you think about Latin culture, they're very, like,
Yeah, like all hips.
Well, they're very
Yeah.
emotional. Men and
Right.
women are both very emotional. So they're very sensual, they're emotive, and their bodies tell that story. Like when I used to coach in the CrossFit space, all of my type A white males, this is just stereotype, but this is what I'm just
They
using
have
some things that
hips.
they couldn't lift. They couldn't do certain lifts because they were so locked up. They all were like shut down and controlled and anxious and maybe some anger. So our hips and our glutes and our pelvic floor, by God's design, are supposed to be fluid and emotional, especially in lovemaking and in the act of sex. But if I'm emotionally locked down, my body's going to do the same thing. So then it comes in as like, I can't let go. I'm really tight. And so then the pelvic floor tightens up, and then I have pain with intercourse. Men, pain with intercourse or erectile dysfunction, because you have to relax and let go. And then the blood flow can come in, then you can have genital arousal, then you can reach climax. But if the pelvic floor for men and women is too strong, too tight, or too weak, they'll have a hard time with sexual function. Does that make sense?
Man, I knew this conversation was going to get to an interesting place. I did not think I would get a biological explanation for why white people can't dance. This is perfect. No, I'm so happy. That was amazing.
Too soon? Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So, okay, is this why
I am white, so I can say that as a white person? Yeah.
Yes, and I'm not, so I can also say that as a non-white person.
Yeah.
So if somebody is like I've seen Kegels, I've actually talked about like the importance of Kegels and how they can be helpful to gain a little bit more control of the pelvic area, and especially if you're having erectile issues and that kind of thing. So is I guess Kegels are strengthening the pelvic floor or giving you more control over that area?
Yep. So some people so most of us sit way too much. So we're a culture that sits more than any other generation has. So that's a huge problem for the pelvic floor, because there's constricted blood flow. And I mean, there are lots of reasons why sitting is not good for us all day long, but constricted blood flow, and we're not engaging our pelvic floor enough. So most men and women have a unfortunate combination of too tight and too weak. So if it's too weak, Kegels are completely appropriate. But the problem is so many people are too tight. They actually don't need to do Kegels. They need to learn how to relax and let go.
Oh, wow. Okay. Got it. So let's talk about that then. So I'm in your office. I got stiff white boy hips and
or brown boy hips. Yeah.
Well, honestly, I can't dance. Like I'm a Kinder Surprise. I'm brown on the outside. I'm white on the inside. So
love it.
That's how it is. So, okay, I can't dance. My hips are stiff. It's maybe causing me some sexual misperformance or performance anxiety.
Yeah.
How do you walk me through that? And let's say, it's not, maybe my pelvic floor is weak, but first of all, it's very clear it's just tight and it needs to be loosened up. What's the protocol?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with pelvic floor therapists, and who those people are is they're basically physical therapists that have gone on to do very specified training with the pelvic floor. So it's a version of pelvic floor therapy. It could be an internal exam or an external exam, depending on the client's comfortability and the practitioner. But some of the men I've worked with, like cancer survivors that maybe have constricted blood flow because of different lymphedema or what have you, or older gentlemen, because all of us, as we age, all of us start to lose strength in our pelvic floor. So if a guy comes in and he's having erectile dysfunction or issues with ejaculating, I'll say, and they're talking about some other things that kind of line up with possible pelvic floor dysfunction, I'll suggest a pelvic floor therapist.
Is there like we're talking about the body keeps the score. So then if somebody does get pelvic floor therapy or whatever means they use to loosen their pelvic floor, is there any kind of psychological, like, is there an EMDR thing kind of going on here where you kind of have bi-directional, if you loosen up the body, there's an emotional processing that can happen as well?
Boom. You got it. Yeah. So a lot of people, I think humans naturally want to avoid therapy the most. Like they'd rather do all the physical stuff first, or like give me a pill, right? Because that's what we're coming. Yeah,
it's the American way.
That's the American way, but it also feels safer and more controllable and reliable. I think so many people are afraid to go to the hard places with their emotions and healing, and so they'll avoid me as long as they can. But oftentimes, if they start pelvic floor therapy or they try these other modalities and things stay locked up, it's common that that the psychological and the emotional stuff will come in. Or I had some people, I've had guys who they are stuck in a loop of compulsive masturbation or pornography. They try pelvic floor therapy to kind of, because they're having a lot of pain. So they think if they masturbate and have that release, it'll kind of help self-soothe the anxiety and help the body relax. But because they can't stop doing it compulsively, that's when the therapists are like, hey, you need to go talk to someone. And so then I'll do like, I don't know if you and I talked about it on my podcast at the something called ART, but EMDR would do it as well.
Yes.
And I have
wanted to ask you about this.
Yeah. So like when you heal the brain and body connection, it allows the thing to release, and then I don't have to keep compulsively masturbating to self-soothe what it is I can't remediate in my brain. So like I had one client, who had complicated grief from the loss of a family member. And once we healed up the grief and healed up the fantasy piece, like what he was fantasizing about when he was looking up on pornography, the compulsions went away and the desire for viewing porn went away. It was fascinating.
Okay. And he was also an incredible dancer after he did that as well?
He's a romantic. I don't know about his dancing.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to dance with my clients, but he was a romantic and very emotional. Like he came in with some poetry and yeah.
So let's talk about ART a little bit. So this is accelerated resolution therapy. And just, yeah, I mean, I don't think most of my audience, I'm going to guess, maybe hasn't heard of it or isn't that familiar. So let's just talk about it at a ground level.
Well, as a modality, it's still newer even in my collegial atmosphere or realm, whatever noun you want to use there. So it's basically EMDR on steroids.
Okay.
And it's bilateral stimulation of both hemispheres. So if you were sitting with my client, you'd be tracking with my hand like this. And the brain, for some reason, by God's design, processes most efficiently with horizontal back and forth eye movement. So like if you think about reading, journaling, REM sleep, the brain does its best processing when it's horizontal eye movements. They did a study with a group of four groups in a study to process. I can't remember what they were processing, but they had vertical, up and down eye movements, back and forth, listening to headphones with the beeping, that bilateral stimulation of both hemispheres, and then tapping. And the group that did the bilateral or the horizontal eye movements process things most efficiently. So it's basically, yep. So it's not hypnosis because you're wide awake. But it 1 to 5 sessions is equivalent to 2 to 3 years of talk therapy. So after,
in what equivalent? In what sense?
Process, efficiency, resolution, quieting the mind down, resolving whatever it is. So like I use it a lot with first responders and PTSD. I also do a lot of work with sexual trauma, and so people that have been assaulted, raped, etc. People, the beauty of this protocol is people don't have to talk. Your brain does the work. So a lot of people are like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to say the things that happened out loud. So I'll walk them through the protocol. And it's like, so trauma gets the brain stuck on a loop. And I know you and I have talked about this, Cynthia, and I'm sure you've talked about it in your other podcasts. People will sexualize their trauma. And that's what they end up fantasizing about or looking up in their pornography pursuits. So when you heal the trauma, the fantasies shift, because when I sexualize something, it keeps it at the forefront of the brain. And then somehow, if I can keep it up here long enough, maybe I can finally get answers or meaning or resolve to this trauma that had me so upset that I just can't let it go. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you must get people then who have tried talking about it and they're still living in it years later.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. If I had
same
this, I wish I had been trained in this or knew about it in 2011 when I first started. I have had so many trauma clients that I think back and like, man, if I had this with him or her, game changer. So I have people that have come in and they've said, I've tried all sorts of therapy and they end up in tears because they're like, it's actually really easy. It's not. And I think like that's really gracious of the Lord. Like healing doesn't have to be rocket science.
Yeah.
But yeah,
super drawn out.
Yeah, that's right. So the idea is the brain, like if you think like trauma is like a straight tree that the brain can't stop traveling up and down, the ART gives it new branches. And literally they've watched under a microscope for 3 days after a session, and you can literally see the brain creating new dendritic branches, new pathways. Come on. Wow. So it's exhausting, but it's so healing and it's so quick. Wow. And so they're using it on more and more military bases to get people back up and out and doing their job, because trauma, sabotages us. The guys I work with, I'm always qualitatively trying to consider the male brain versus the female brain. It's really fun to watch how fast men process. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's just boom, 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 boom. They seem to do really well with it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my wife got into a disagreement today because I process things very quickly. I would say maybe even faster than the typical guy. And sometimes it's just like, it feels like I didn't acknowledge what she said or like, that kind of thing. So that's funny that you brought that up. What is it about ART that makes it EMDR on steroids? Because what you described sounds like EMDR. Where's the steroid part of it?
Yeah. So I have never done EMDR, full disclosure. I've never been trained in it. My understanding from the people who have done EMDR and ART is the protocols are different. So I think my understanding with EMDR is things are more open-ended and free association. ART, literally there's a script that I walk people through that it's like by the end of the script, there is a sense of closure.
A sense of closure for the thing they're processing, like a
Mm-hmm.
specific trauma
That's
or
right.
something like that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, got it.
And one of my, I tried it on a therapist colleague who does EMDR, and she said it felt more creative. So I
ART
think,
felt more creative?
yeah, I think she said it felt more creative, and the imagery was a little more creative. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's the feedback I've gotten so far.
And I suppose the only talk component that would be necessary at that point would be if somebody came to you and didn't know the traumas, would you help them identify them first before you
Oh,
start
for
guiding them through
sure.
ART? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and depending, people show up and say, "Hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Hey, this is what I'm dealing with," and then my job is to help them figure out the root of that. Where did that start? Is there a theme or a pattern? Is it just one acute trauma that you just like? I heard about ART. I had a pickup truck accident where I rolled into the woods in the middle of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in October
Oh,
in
wow.
record snowfall, hit black ice, flipped going 60 miles an hour, thought I was going to die, and ended upside down with my niece. And for a year after that, I had such bad PTSD. Whenever it would start raining, I would literally have a flashback. Like, oh my gosh. And there's a lot of rain in Chattanooga. So if it would start pulling on the tires, I literally felt like I was in that moment again. And I would have nightmares about flipping in houses and rolling. And then when that time of year came back around, this is where the body keeps the score. I felt so heavy I couldn't get out of bed. Like couldn't get out of bed. And I was like the grief and the heaviness and the sadness. So one of my friends had been trained in it. She was like, "Come in, let's see if we can move that trauma out of your body." And I was like, "This is crazy. This is dumb." And it worked. Like one session, it worked.
One
It
session
pulled
of ART.
one session of ART processing that truck accident, all the heaviness lifted, and I could function again. It was crazy. The
Wow.
nightmares stopped. It was crazy.
Do you think people get like hooked into trauma therapy, or not, sorry, not trauma therapy, talk therapy, almost in like I'm trying to think of the right word, but kind of like you kind of get hooked on the feelings that come from like talking about it and rehashing it and that sort of thing, or what? Like if there's modalities like this, why would people still stay with talk therapies? Basically, what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I think, every human has different needs, different attachment needs, different love languages. So a lot of my clients that really value quality time and they grew up in families where they were neglected, they just want to use their voice. And they've never had anyone sit and give them undivided attention while they talk and share their story. So a lot of my clients just want to be heard, and ART doesn't necessarily facilitate that. Like people, from an attachment perspective, they just need a safe, secure attachment figure available to sit and like witness their story and just be present. And so some people are like, I just want to talk and I just want you to listen. And I'm like, done, can do that, can totally do that. Like, I get
Yeah.
it. So I think people that have a lot of neglect and never felt seen and validated want to use their voice for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if a Christian couple walks into your office, Karissa,
Uh huh.
and they're like, "Hey, we came here because we're having some issues,"
Hmm.
and you have to guess what their issue is before they tell you. Is there anything that you're like, generally, like I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like, is there something that generally is coming up consistently with Christian couples when it comes to sex issues?
Oh, no one's ever asked me that. So I try to pay attention to like the sociology, where we're at as a culture. So a lot of, to your point with the audience, there are a lot more people, men and women, struggling with porn. That's super commonplace. Like people coming in where somebody's hooked on porn or has a pornified mindset, or their education has all been through porn, so they don't know how to make love or have real intimacy and be vulnerable and really connect. So that's pretty common. Christian and not Christian. Down here in Chattanooga, there's more and more domestic violence. I've had more.
Is that specific like to your city?
This area. Like I've practiced in Atlanta, Maryland, and Chattanooga, and there's something about this area that the Lord is just bringing in all these people that are dealing with domestic violence in a way I've never seen before. So I've been praying about that and what that's about. Um, yep. So as far as what I'm seeing, and then a lot of low desire cases where people just don't want it, aren't ever in the mood. That's always kind of been there, but I think there's more and more of that because of the lack of physical health for Americans and the lack of connection and the number of people that are using mood stabilizers and SSRIs and SNRIs. Does that make sense? So
Mm.
a lot of people struggling
Yeah.
with a lot of people struggling with anxiety and depression, and then I get on a medication, or for females, I get on birth control, and then I tell my brain, you don't really want to have sex, because chemically that's what those drugs do. And so that's a lot of what I'm seeing right now.
That's really interesting. Yeah, my wife and I did go through that because she was taking some antidepressant medication for a bit,
Yeah.
and huge shift in her sex drive, and she was very aware of it, and we were able to talk about it, and it didn't really affect our sex life a lot. Like, we're very grateful to have had that relationship,
Yeah.
but not everybody has that experience, and a lot of our clients, like with Deep Clean, where we're helping guys quit porn, a lot of clients are using pornography because their wife has low desire, their wife doesn't want to have sex with them.
Right.
And this is sort of their way of, getting their fill, getting their release,
Yeah.
or, sometimes it's a bit more personal and it's a rebellion kind of thing. If a guy who's listening to this is in that situation, so his marriage has become sexless and his wife has low desire, what's the course of action?
Well, are both coming to see me or just one?
Okay, let's do this. Let's do both scenarios. So let's start with if they're both coming to see you.
Okay. So what I try to share with my couples is, by God, are they Christian or not? I'll just say by design or by God's design. The act of marriage is sex. Like Old Testament, that's what made you married, was having sex with someone. And so unless you signed up with the agreement that you are going to have a sexless marriage, let's try and figure out how we can get both of you on board where you both want this and enjoy this, because that is if you've signed up for monogamy, and this isn't with an entitlement demand, like you're supposed to meet all my needs because I'm not getting it anywhere else because I have to work with people through that. And I know Andrew Bauman talks about that with his stuff, that entitlement with sex. But hey, it's not like if you signed up to say, hey, we're doing monogamy, and we didn't agree to sexlessness, then we got to figure this out. And then Dr. Barry McCarthy, who is a sex therapist in the DC area, he's infamous in the faith world and the not faith world as a sex therapist. He shares that a sexless marriage is considered 10 episodes or less a year. And when a sex life is in distress, it will drain a marriage relationship of up to 75 to 90% of its energy.
Whoa.
Hello. So if our love life is struggling, it can be so distressing that 75 to 90% of the energy we have as a couple is drained. It's that distressing.
Wow.
And then conversely, if things are good and we're both satisfied, it will energize a couple of up to 30% of its energy. So I'm just big on like physics and science and chemistry. I'm like, so mathematically, sex is supposed to be an important part of y'all's sense of satisfaction in a healthy marriage. And I always say in my office, we are pro sex in this office. And so for ladies, I do a lot of educating. And Cynthia, I know you and I talked about this texting. Our culture is so not healthy about female sexuality and the female sexual model. And then porn is devastating that even more. I do a ton of educating on the female sexual response. And I do a ton of educating with men about female sexuality and how they have to slow things way down, and be a lot more service oriented rather than take and grab. And so oftentimes with couples, because men and women are not taught about the differences between male and female sexuality, and if their education is porn, it's obviously super unhealthy. A lot of women will say, well, he just walks in and grabs my boob. He just grabs my butt. He just grabs my crotch. Like, that doesn't do it for me. That's really annoying. It just makes me feel like a piece of meat. And so I do a lot of coaching about, and a lot of guys are like, well, I never get it. So I got to grab, like I'm horny. I want to do something. Like I got to get it while I can. And so I usually have to do a ton of helping them shift that energy and creating like safety and trust for both of them. Because that's where trust starts to kind of go out the door. It's like if the husband statistically used to have the higher drive, every 4 to 5 marriages, the husband used to have the higher sex drive. If he's like, well, I never know I'm going to get it. So it's like I'm starving and a meal walks by, right? And so ladies, and then they start to say, well, the only time you ever want to touch me is when you want to get laid. So there's this really nasty cycle that couples get stuck in. So I have to like back them way up and kind of figure out where things went off the rails. And then like with my newlywed couples, I'm big on like functional medicine and holistic medicine, even though I came out of like Western modern medicine as a family background. I like both. Can we marry them both? But I talk a lot about like, are there other forms of birth control we could try? Because like in the newlywed culture down here in the Bible Belt, It's okay. We waited to get married to have sex. So now she gets on birth control. Most hormonal birth controls are going to devastate a female's health, oftentimes mental health. So then she gets on the SSRI on top of that. Usually there could be weight gain, acne, depression, anxiety, but it's just like this nasty double shutdown thing. And so I'll say, let's back things up chemically. All right. Like, what are some other options of birth control, of psychiatric care? I'm big on people doing like some genetic testing around something called MTHFR. Half the population has a gene mutation that contributes to anxiety or depression and infertility and miscarriages, etc. So, anyways, there's just a lot to it. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Cynthia. I could talk for a long
Yeah.
time. Okay.
Yeah, so okay, I do want to talk about if it's just a guy on his own who's in a sexless marriage. We'll get there in a minute. On the holistic side of it, so like I mean we've had naturopaths. I'm working with a naturopath right now. I'm a really big fan of the merge, like you said, the hybrid of Western and more naturopathic medicine.
Yeah.
So in this particular arena, what kind of like is there? You talked about the that's a methylation, right? MTFH,
Yes, sir.
the methylation of that
Mhm.
gene. So there's some genetics, but is there lifestyle stuff? Like, are you getting to sleep? Are you into hormone profiling? Are there any other things that you find come up a lot once you
Is
start the holistic part of it?
what are we addressing? What goal? Like, what are we treating?
I suppose it we'll keep it in the same context of you're helping this couple want to have sex more with each other.
Oh yeah. So yeah, one of my offices here in Chattanooga is partnered with a hormone optimization clinic. They are MDs, PAs, and NPs that got tired of reactive medicine versus proactive, like recovery health, like promoting health. So they open this practice. And so they do like very intentional blood work where they're looking at sex hormone profiles, thyroid, MTHFR, vitamin deficiencies, etc. And a lot of the people that most Americans are hormonally very imbalanced. So the average male in his 20s right now has the testosterone level of the average 50-year-old.
It's crazy.
It's
My
terrible.
goodness.
I mean, like I
Yeah.
have a whole podcast with one of the practitioners about the implications of low T in men.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's why TRT is like making a killing right now, right? Because everybody
Right.
needs it.
Right. Because it's literally, women and men both need testosterone. Men just need more. So women aren't taught that. No one teaches women that testosterone is just important for us to have a sex drive and energy and brain health and metabolic function and also and the ability to orgasm. Women need testosterone just as much as men. We don't need as much. So the average male should have
Right.
15 times the amount of the average female. The average male is really low, so we're seeing higher rates of erectile dysfunction for men in their 20s and 30s. You talk about like emasculated or effeminate behaviors, like men not showing up as like dudes. I always say that, like showing up, like passive, hanging out, disappearing onto video games, not hunting and gathering in the modern day, if you will, right? Like, so if that's happening in the family system, then it's all on the wife. Then she starts running in her masculine energy. She's exhausted, burnt out, resentful, high cortisol. Her hormones get depleted, and then everyone's burnt out and exhausted and in adrenal fatigue, and no one's in the mood ever because sex takes energy. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cynthia, yeah. So I do a ton with like
It's a lot to take in.
I know. I'm so tell me to pump the brakes, but like I do a
No, no, it's
ton
good.
with hormone health because most Americans are not hormonally healthy. I immediately go, I would love to know about your biology if you're interested in investigating into that. Because if the biology checks out, then I can cross it off my list as far as causes or etiology, and then we
Yeah.
can work on treating the psychology, the relational piece, the emotional piece. Maybe you had shame in your background from church upbringing. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's so fascinating. And because I think even the word holistic is very abused in our world today, right? But it's cool to hear kind of your philosophy because you have ART and then you have like a pelvic floor therapist or specialist, and you have this hormone optimizing clinic, and it's cool to hear some of the kind of branches. Are
Thanks.
there any
Yeah.
other people that you're typically like referring people to, like clients that come to you? Is there any other elements that we haven't touched on?
Let's see, hormones, pelvic floor, psychiatry. I mentioned that. I have a lot of untreated ADHD that comes in, and those are the people that get hooked on porn very easily. So ADHD is like dopamine deficiency in the brain, and
Right.
so it makes humans more vulnerable to addictive dopaminergic. uh, tendencies, if you will. And
Yes.
porn is obviously like whatever, electrifying for the brain. And so it's like lots of dopamine quickly. So a lot of people that have untreated ADHD, I think, are more vulnerable to getting hooked on porn and pornographic
Yes.
stuff.
We actually had an ADHD specialist named Dr. Tamara Rozier on our
Did you
podcast.
really? Okay.
She's really good. I'll connect you guys.
Okay.
She has ADHD herself, but then she did her PhD in ADHD. That's
Good for
a lot of
her.
D's in there, but
That's
yeah, and
that's
H's.
a
Yeah.
lot of letters. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's great. And she actually did a talk with our clients, our community, and just help them understand like, hey, if you have ADHD, you struggle with porn, here's some things you need to be thinking about.
Totally.
One really helpful question was, she said, you need to ask yourself, is pornography a stimulant or a relaxant for me? Because it helps you understand just the nature of your relationship with it and how to find a healthier alternative. It was really, really helpful.
That is cool. Yeah. And then I guess from a trauma perspective, it's like, there's a lot of dissociation and escapism. So I have a lot of clients that turn to porn for dissociation and escapism, and it's not necessarily a stimulant or relaxant. It's just I want to escape.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I talk a lot about that with men and women who they get hooked when they're little because family of origin stuff, being at home was awful or hard, or they were alone, and it made them feel not alone, and they can escape. And yeah, but yeah. So ADHD, I do a lot of psychiatric referrals for sure with that part of practice. And then yeah, I mean, spiritual, I do. Yeah, this sounds cuckoo cuckoo, but I'm going to say it anyway. I grew up, my dad was a Freemason, 32nd degree Freemason. His dad was a Freemason. I have Freemasonry on both sides. So before I ever met Jesus, I had a ton of experiences with the demonic. Because the nature of Freemasonry, the guy who took it over, he was Luciferian. And so you end up bringing in a lot of spiritual curses. And so I'm big on the spiritual because sexuality and worship are so connected. And we do not teach that. Like all throughout scripture, when people start sleeping with pagan cultures, they start worshiping pagan gods. Like like King Solomon, he had 1,000 women he was hooking up with, and God said, "Don't marry the women of blank." Well, then he's marrying and mating and copulating with those women, and then the wisest man on earth is led away to worship pagan gods in the end because of who he was sleeping with.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What? So I'm just really passionate right now and praying through like how to communicate that. But our worship and our sex is so connected. John Eldredge talks about, the act of sex could feel like the closest thing to worship in heaven on this side of earth. Like good sex, it's euphoric. Yeah. Like some people see color, some people lose their sound. I mean, it can be amazing. It's supposed to be by God's design. And so, but if I am partnering with somebody who's carrying spirits that I don't need to be tied up with, so I do a lot of like, if my faith-based couples are open to it, I'll talk with them about soul ties, inner vows, generational curses, breaking those things.
Okay, got it. So you're pretty strong on the inner healing side of it as well.
Huge. Yeah, because sexuality is about our soul and our spirit.
Yes.
Like it's literally about identity. It is so connected to identity. And so when people are like, I've been in relationships where I've partnered with people who are in witchcraft, and then all of a sudden I have witchcraft manifesting in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm super passionate about that. And that rubs a lot of people sideways, but I know for a fact by testimony and experience and watching others walk through it, like that's a very real thing. I think with the porn industry, we don't get to pick and choose what we expose ourselves to. And there's so much perversion and a spirit of abuse. Right. Yes. And so like our TVs, our screens, they are all portals. So I'm big on we don't get to pick and choose what spirits want to come in as a result of me opening a portal.
Yeah. Yeah. Once it's open, you're subject to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm big on that as well with clients if they're open to it, or I'm just
interesting.
Low key praying in my spirit over them while they're talking.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Well, that's why you're such a fascinating guest for our show. Cause I think you have such a blend of like clinical elements, academic, doing your PhD, and then the spiritual part of it.
Thank you.
And soul care. So it's really, really cool. And I've heard John Eldredge say, I mean, anytime John Eldredge talks, I just try to be quiet and take notes.
Right. Yes.
He's going to be on the show actually.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
Yeah, we're interviewing him really soon. So,
okay, well, I'll tell Jay about you. You tell John about me, and we'll cross refer, please, because I would love. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
Good for you.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited. We've been trying to get him on for 4 years. So,
what?
Anyways, yeah,
what a privilege.
Oh, he's like a hermit, right? So and then he just comes out of hiding and kind of like does
Yes.
what he wants. So it was
Yes.
so his team was like, "Hey, here are 10 slots, first come, first serve." And we were like, just give us
No
one of them. Yeah.
way. No
Yeah,
way.
but
Good for
4
you.
years. Yeah, 4 years in the
Okay.
making for that one.
All
So there
right.
you go. Yeah.
Jacob, Rachel, Leah, we'll work it. Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
Yes.
Hey, whatever I got to do as long as
That's
I
it.
get it eventually.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Okay, so I don't want to forget about the person who's in a sexless marriage. They come into your office alone. Their wife doesn't think they're part of the problem, or they haven't broached the subject with her. Whatever the reason is that they're in there alone, they're like, "Hey, I'm in a sexless marriage, and I want to do something about it."
Mm-hmm.
What do they do?
Well, my first question usually for a guy who comes in is I'll say, "Is your wife open to this at all?"
Okay, like let's try
Because
to get her in here
yeah,
if it's
100%. Because you're not having sex with yourself, and I need to know her version. Right? I mean, good sex is partnered, and so my thing is your wife open to this? Well, no, blah blah blah. So if maybe she's a hard nut to crack, so to speak, I'll say I'll try and coach the husband on what are her love languages, what are some things you could do to help soften, like depending on, and every person is different. So there's not like a super specific formula because every human, like I've had men that are like tenderhearted, they mean really well, they have good hearts, they genuinely want good things, and they're married to controlling, atrocious women
hmm.
who I'm like, and there's so then I have to address then like I'm going, okay, there's like a codependency here. This is not about like she's doing the wicked queen thing or being controlling and mean and punitive because those women are out there. And so the husband's like, I'm desperate to connect, and then she's just kind of dangling it over him. So there are those relationships I have to consider. And then that's more into like that's not even about sex at that point. If he thinks she's open, I'll usually try to do my female advocacy thing and give him some tidbits to go back and talk with her about. And sometimes when women hear what I'm talking to their husband about, they'll go, okay, I'll show up for a session, or I'll try
Right.
it, or I'll meet with her and I'll tell her what's really going on. And then I'll try and create, an alliance with that if it's appropriate and they feel comfortable. So every session's different. And then I do have some couples where one partner says, I could be okay never having sex for the rest of my life.
Right.
And then I'll say, do you want to explore that at all? And they'll say, no, if I could live in a monastery, or I just wanted to have babies and I got what I wanted, and then I'll say, well, I think you should let your partner know that. And then you two have a decision to make about if you want to agree to a sexless marriage or if you should go your separate ways. Because by
Yeah.
design, if you're doing monogamy and you're trying to be loyal to just your partner, it's not fair. I mean, that's just what you signed up for when you got married.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the worst stories I've heard as far as like affairs or really bad acting out is in a marriage it's usually because of that kind of dynamic.
Mm,
Like it's just this close ended, I
yep.
don't want to have sex, and that's
Yeah.
just the way it is. And the guy
Yeah.
feels stuck, and then he,
Sure.
eventually can't do anything.
Well, sure, yeah. So yeah, a lot of people end up going, well, I need to make a decision then. I need to decide if I can be roommates with her for, and I think Cynthia, and I don't think this is super healthy, but I think this is where this is coming from. That's where the open marriage thing is happening now, where people don't want to go through the rigmarole of divorce, or they like each other, but then they are like, well, let's stay together, and you can just go get that need met with someone else.
Yeah.
That doesn't work long term, but I think
No.
that's a huge part of why people are considering the open marriage stuff now. Is like, I don't want to sleep with you, but I like you, or I don't want to. The kids, we want to stay together for the kids, or we can't financially afford splitting.
I've seen the open marriage as kind of a way of coping with an affair as well. Like, okay, I guess if you want to do that, then let's still stay married for, yeah. And then usually it's for the kids or the financial stability. But
Yeah.
yeah, very, very, very interesting.
It doesn't work. I mean, unless you're a sociopath, which there are some of those, or you're a narcissist,
Yeah.
and there are some of those. Like, sex is designed to bond us.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most physically bonding thing we can do with another human as an adult. And so if I'm regularly having sex and physically bonding with another person, chemically, I'm going to start pairing with them. I'm going to attach to them. And it always backfires with the third party stuff.
Yeah. There's actually, I mean, there's even Christian polygamists now. I don't know if you've seen that movement.
No, I mean, I hear people, they'll reach out and ask me about it, and I'll just say, I'm not the therapist for you. Like, I just don't think that works. That's not what my practice is about. And I can refer you out. But
Yeah. Yeah. Really interesting. So something I actually want to ask you, because
yeah,
you are you single? Are
I
you
am.
married?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Single.
So what's it been like going through all this as a single person? How do you protect yourself? And
Oh.
um
Mm-hmm.
it's such a sensual, personal topic. You have couples in front of you, and you're obviously abiding by biblical standards. So how do you manage all that?
I work out a lot.
Okay.
And I can't say I've been perfect by any means, not perfect at all. It's been probably one of my biggest pain points with the Lord. It's one of my biggest pain
Being
points.
single?
Yeah, and loving sex, loving sensuality. I mean, I'm a high testosterone female. I played college sports. I love physical touch. It's one of my top love languages. I talk about it all day, so it kind of keeps your brain hypersexualized. And you're like, one of my Christian mentors, Doug Rosenau. He's passed, but he said it's like a weird professional voyeurism. Like you have to have just enough of an
Yes.
idea of what people are doing to like coach them, but like be appropriate and respectful and boundaried.
Yes.
So it's been a real pain point for me as far as, okay, Lord, this feels unfair. So I don't know that. I mean, part of it is I do a lot of praying. I think I'm fine, honestly, for the first time ever. I'm finally in a season where I'm really cool with just the presence of God, and I've never been there before. I used to hate when people would say that. Yeah, and there's still loneliness. Like I still want hugs and kisses, right? Because that's what we like.
Yeah.
But the loneliness piece, I think, because of where the practice is at spiritually, where people are at spiritually, I'm trying to be a lot more protective about, not like a John Eldridge level, but I'm guessing that's probably part of his hermit status. Is like I'm trying to be a lot more protective about where I'm using energy, whose energy I'm exposed to, um, etc. So I'm just being a little more picky, and it just feels a lot more satisfying in that way versus like chasing, because all that stuff gets empty really fast.
Hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't by any means have it all figured out, but
Why is fitness so helpful for you? And I'm not trying to I'm not trying to dig into your life, but there's people listening who are in the same position, right? They're doing their work, they've done their work, they want to be with somebody, and I really feel it for the guys who are single and who are trying to avoid pornography and
yeah,
masturbation.
yeah.
I think the best thing is to heal when you're single. I think the data would definitely suggest that as well. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean that it's easy to be in
Oh
that position. So that's why I'm
no,
picking your brain a little bit.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So there are more single people than there have ever been in history,
Hmm.
which is interesting because that doesn't mean we stop being sexual.
Yeah.
And we're telling people to wait longer to get married than ever before. And
Also true.
so,
Yeah.
right, like back in the day, Jewish culture, it was like as soon as humans hit puberty, it was like, let's get you married up, kiddo,
Yeah.
because this stuff is
It's
powerful,
kind of
and you
just
need,
wild to think now,
yeah,
hey?
yeah, and you need an outlet for this. Like you're by God's design, like you're passionate, it's fun, it's exciting. We need to give you an outlet, and let's eat, drink, and be merry, and reproduce, and have babies, and increase the tribe. So that I think historically we're at a place we've never been before, while still remaining sexual beings.
Yeah.
Um, so I think for like community, getting community needs met is huge. We're so isolationist as Americans, like we're the one of the loneliest nations on earth.
Yes.
And like I was saying earlier about my trauma was cold, dark, and alone. And so one of the intuitively quickest ways to not feel that way is sexual bonding, sexual pairing. And I remember I was out on a date with a guy a couple years ago at a steakhouse, and there was a gentleman who was half Iranian and half Italian, all Mediterranean, and he was Paul, and he said, "You Americans, you're so over sexualized. Like eat, like have a meal, spend hours at a table, talk. All you do is work and have sex, work and have sex." And so I was like, yeah, there's a lot to that. Like Americans aren't really good at like slowing down and bonding and doing community and getting those intimacy needs met in other formats other than sex. So I think if people are open to trying to facilitate that community experience, healthy fellowship. For me, I love the CrossFit gym because it's community. We're like suffering together, all that stuff. And then we're chit chatting in between. Sometimes I'll go to Gold's Gym and all the guys are in there just da 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 da. So they're like culturally, that's where the guys can find fellowship and it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Volunteer stuff with the church, I think, is fun because you're like feeding your spirit person and hopefully communing with people that value the same thing. So I just try to stay involved. I love my work. This is a fun thing. I don't know if you've heard this, Cynthia, but they talk about a lot of the erotic sexual energy is what we use to be creative and productive. So like with
Interesting.
like a lot of people that are hooked on porn end up kind of getting lazy and passive a lot of the time.
Yes, that's definitely true. Yeah.
They're like siphoning off that energy.
Huh.
They're
Interesting.
siphoning off that energy. So if I can like keep that energy kind of dammed up and in a healthier riverbed, and I can siphon it towards something, I can grow my practice, I can grow my podcast, I can grow my business, I can grow
Yeah,
my
yeah.
health goals. So I like to think of that erotic sexual energy as like productive creative energy. So for me, I just try to steward it or channel it towards thing that I feel like the Lord has for me. Like I'm big, like right now, one of my mentors said, think of in terms of spiritual assignments. What is your assignment right now?
Mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
I try to like check in with the Lord every day and go, what do we have on what's on the books today, Lord? What's the assignment? And for me, that
Yeah.
helps me kind of stay focused and channel to like redirect that energy towards let's get the assignments done today versus like,
Yes.
what am I going to do? I don't have
Yeah.
purpose. I know a lot of men that experience futility or purposelessness are more prone to watch porn regularly.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I think us finding our purpose and why I'm here today and what I'm supposed to be about is a nice distraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that
Yeah. It
make
makes
sense?
sense. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, this has been like the thing that God's put on my heart for, well, probably like two plus years now, which is we become like really effective at helping guys quit pornography. So a lot of them experience exactly what you just said. They quit pornography and then they want to go set the world on fire. They want to go start that business.
Yes.
Just this morning on one of my coaching calls, one of my clients is like, man, I think I'm ready to make the leap. I've always wanted to do this. And just we're talking through that. Yes, a lot of them get back into art or get into music or that
Yeah.
creative energy. So we've 100% witnessed that. And it's something that I've really wanted to build out kind of a second phase of our practice of helping guys step more into that, once they quit pornography. So that's something we're working on because we just see it happen so much in this demographic.
Praise God. That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like discipleship. It's like, hey, you got healed at the pool of Bethesda. You're not like stuck in your loops anymore. So now what do I do now that I have my legs back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good for
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah,
cool.
but it's helpful to hear what you're doing. Like I think everyone's got their own ways, but the one thing I'm hearing underneath all of it is you have to be really intentional. Like it's not you're not going to make your way through that season effectively by accident. You have to be
No,
intentional.
no. And because loneliness can be so loud, all of a sudden you're reaching out to people that you're like, if I get all soul tied up with this person, or if I contract something from this person, is it going to be worth it? Right. And so, I mean, seriously, those are things we have to think about nowadays in the dating pool. So I have
Yeah,
to walk myself through like this is not worth it. It'd be easy to go out and hook up. But that's not satisfying. That's really lame. And then you feel like garbage the next day and you're like, well, that's not, I feel cheap or I numb or empty and it just makes it worse. And I think porn can do the same thing, that emptiness and that numbness.
yeah,
So yeah, you can't, I have to be deliberate and intentional for sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
To culminate this entire
Yes,
conversation,
sir.
what constitutes good sex from a
Cynthia.
clinical, academic,
Oh,
and
man.
biblical / spiritual lens?
Oh my gosh, who are you? Okay, start over. That's a lot. Let's start over. Okay.
Well, because we've kind of talked about like what makes for bad sex, right? Like we know if you have a tight pelvic floor, if there's emotional disconnection, if you have a trauma history, like we've outlined all that. So I want to do some vision casting now for people that are listening that are like, yes, but what are the elements of good sex? Or maybe someone's listening, they're like, my sex life is pretty good. My wife and I think would both agree,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe there's an element that could be stronger because this is what I like about you. You have such a multifaceted angle into things just because of your academic background and your faith journey. So
Well, thank
what are
you.
like, just I'm trying to extract as much of your wisdom as possible from my audience. So
Cynthia.
what
Well, I
are
feel like
those?
I'm rambling. I'm leading us through the wilderness over and over again. So
Yeah, I'm trying to buy you some time here, but my question is basically the exact same. What
what makes good
constitutes good
sex?
sex? And I'm wondering if you can offer it from those three different perspectives: the biblical part, the clinical part, and the more academic part.
Okay, I'll try. And you just bring me back in if I'm getting off track here. Well, my secular PhD program, their criteria is as long as it's pleasurable and there's consent.
Pleasurable and consent. Okay, that's it. Those are the two
That's
criteria.
it. So they're
The more consent, the more pleasure, like the better.
Well, no, I mean they're open to like open relationships. They're open to hookup culture. They're open to porn. Like
Yeah,
it's
right.
very like worldly. Okay, so that's my PhD. My spiritual mentors in grad school would say pleasure, like we're prioritizing both parties' pleasure, but also like what is the spirit of coming together? Like, is it for oneness? Is it to serve each other? Is it to bless? Is it to be life givers? Um, so there's that. So I'm always like I mean, all couples are in different seasons of life. So some of my couples, they'll create a menu where it's like, are we doing like 5 course entree? Or are we doing like a quickie appetizer because we have to get to church and it's the only time we have, this week or whatever. So I think season of life matters. I think every human's personality is different. Like I have some very sensory heavy people that just love the sensory part. I have some people that are very they're in their spirit more, so it feels more like a spiritual experience. And I have some people that are both. So I think it depends on the couple. But my thing is like obviously consent.
Yeah.
Both parties are on
Good
board.
start. Yeah.
Yeah, consent. I think it's important to prioritize both parties' pleasure, and that doesn't always look the same. Like a lot of women, when you ask women what they enjoy most about sex, it's closeness. And so if she doesn't need to orgasm for her to feel satisfied, it's very confusing to her husband because he's like, well, if you could, why wouldn't you want to? And she's like, I just don't need it. Like, not all women need orgasms. Like, guys appreciate orgasms. So, but still prioritizing pleasure. I think being safe and exploratory can be fun. Like trying not to get caught in a rut. A lot of people get caught in a rut, but you need to be able to communicate. According to Dr. McCarthy, safety, trust, intimacy, prioritizing the erotic, and communication. So
Okay.
all those things are very important. The erotic, trust, safety, like you need to like each other, friendship,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah.
just we're using each other.
Yeah. The
Um,
communication piece is a big one too, though, right? Because I know for me, like in my marriage, definitely the more Shaloma and I have talked about this area, the better our sex life has gone for
that's
sure.
right. And research says the more a couple talks about their love life, the healthier and happier their love life is. And so a huge part of that, I think, is the brain is the most powerful sex organ. So I'm talking to you about it. I'm thinking about it. When I'm thinking about it, I'm deciding what I like and what I don't like. So yeah, it's just kind of a fun feedback loop. So couples that talk about their love life regularly have better sex life in general. Sensory, I always like to ask people to think about their 5 senses. So Emily Nagoski, she wrote "Come as You Are" about female sexuality. She talks about the dual motor cortex. So like in the brain, there are brakes and accelerators, and so like if we're trying to get things going, and I smell something that smells bad, or you taste bad, or you're cold and clammy, and I want warm and brown sugar, it's like my brain goes brakes, brakes. So I'll coach couples on like where are you making love, where are you having sex, is it a setting that you visually enjoy, that you enjoy the noises, the sounds, the smells, the taste, the touch. So I'll have couples get in touch with their sensory maps. Yeah, I don't know if that helps at all.
It's really helpful. So it sounds like, okay, so obviously consent is what kind of gets you into the arena, so to
Yes.
speak. And
Yes.
then it's pleasure, it's understanding the desire and the intent. And then like the one thing I heard from even just the menu, if it were like
Yeah.
the appetizer versus the 5 course meal, is there's a huge part of just expectations, right? And that's where the communication piece comes in, is just
Yes.
being on the same page about that. And when you're not on the same page, talking it through so that there's an understanding.
Yes, that would be the ideal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll say
Which
it.
is what
Yeah.
that's what I was looking
Yeah.
for. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
And
there's obviously overlap from those different arenas.
yep. Yep. And I try to encourage couples because usually with couples one person always ends up initiating. It's usually the person with the higher drive, usually, not always. But I try to coach couples where both husband and wife need to pursue because both men and women want to be wanted. And I think that's probably a huge part of what porn plays into is it makes men feel wanted in their mind, in their fantasy
Yes.
is they
Yes.
feel wanted, they feel accepted, they feel enjoyed, like she's so turned on by him and aroused by him and who he is that he feels adored and admired and accepted, which is the masculine. And so
Yeah.
a lot of women don't know that about the masculine and a lot of men don't even know that about themselves or how to articulate it. So I try to coach women and men to get in touch with initiating and mutual seduction in a way that both feel comfortable with because men want to be seduced. I think that's a fun gift that the female has. in her feminine. Like the beauty is supposed to be fun and enticing, and but that gets into a lot of ladies and their stuff with beauty. But yeah, if you can get those two gender energies moving in the right direction, it can be really powerful and beautiful.
Karissa, we need to have another conversation. This was so good. What's the name of your podcast? I definitely want my audience to go check that out, and anything else that you think would be valuable for them.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah. So my podcast is called the Healthy Sex Podcast. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, on my website, which is iloveusintimacy.com. I have a little YouTube channel that's not very big at this point, but all of my episodes will be on Apple or Spotify. It's called the Healthy Sex Podcast. Yeah. And then I try to share all sorts of what we're talking about in here: the spiritual, the biological, the psychological, relational, gender stuff. We're going to have Jay Stringer on next week. He's going to probably talk with us about fantasy.
Great. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's
Come
awesome.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. We'll put links to all of it in the show notes. Thank you. Thanks for your time and your
Thank
wisdom.
you
This was
for,
amazing.
yes, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure and a delight. And praise the Lord for you and your ministry, Cynthia. Thank you for what you're doing
Thanks,
with
Karissa.
men. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome.